We come together bringing our beautiful, broken, complicated, mixed up, and precious lives. We come together bringing our joys and sorrows, dreams and doubts, hopes and fears, gratitude and grief. We bring our whole, imperfectly lovable selves to this gathered community where we support one another, journey together on the road of life, and remember that we are not alone. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church at Berkeley. I'm Don Close, and I'll be your worship associate today. This is a welcoming congregation, and we are always working on how better to welcome and care for one another. If this is your first time here, or if you've been coming for a while recently, or if you've come back after a long time away, we're so glad you've come. And whoever you are, we welcome you in the fullness of who you are. As we begin, as is our practice, we want to acknowledge that this church occupies land in Huichin, the unceded territory of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people. We understand that we continue to benefit from the seizure and occupation of this land. We acknowledge and embrace our responsibility to take restorative action. We affirm that this is deeply felt and commit our congregation to be in right relationship with Indigenous communities, aligning in solidarity, supporting Indigenous projects, and caring properly for the land. Today, we welcome to our pulpit the Reverend Sue Magnuson. Sue is a longtime member of this congregation, as well as one of its affiliated community ministers. Her primary ministry is hospital chaplaincy for the Alameda County Health System. With Reverend Sue, let us kindle our chalice flame with these words by Summer Albieti. In betwixt and in between, we move in the liminal spaces that show shades of what can become, what can be. We light this chalice as a symbol of courage to move into that time of this and that, and not this and not that, with patience and faith and love and hope, that this time will pass like the sun that moves in between, rising and setting, reminding us that beauty resounds in betwixt and in between. And now please rise in body or spirit to join in singing our opening song, number 128 in the gray hymnal, For All That Is Our Life. The words will be on the screen. And join me in saying our covenant. Love guides this church. The quest for truth and justice is its common purpose. To give thanks, listen deeply, speak with care, honor our differences, and seek and grant forgiveness. These things we covenant with one another. Please be seated.
it is really hard to sit still to that music. If I were alone in my living room, I'd be dancing around. So thank you. This is the time for all ages, and I would love some company up here, particularly since these are wonderful illustrations that you're not going to be able to see from the back of the sanctuary. So I invite you to come join me on the stairs. And while folks are coming up, and I hope you'll keep coming up, I want to tell you a little bit. Okay, can you hear me, or does that keep going in and out? You can hear me. Okay. I know, the problem is I need the mask because we're all so close. I will take it off for everything else, and sounds good. Okay. All right, well, okay, sound check taken care of. Wave at me if you can't hear me. I wanted to tell you a little bit about this book before I share it with you. This is one of my all-time favorite books. It's a book I wish I grew up with, but it hadn't been written yet. And I tend to give lots of copies of it away at baby showers so that other people can grow up with it. So the illustrations are wonderful. We could not get permission to share them on the screen. So you have two choices. You can come join us on the stairs so you can see the pictures, or you can use your imagination and create your own pictures in your mind. It's a very evocative book. And then maybe go to the library or catch me afterward to see the pictures in the book. So this is a Dr. Seuss book, but it's a very unusual Dr. Seuss book. And the backstory is that when Dr. Seuss was writing The Cat in the Hat and Green Eggs and Ham and Horton Hears a Who and all those other wonderful books, he sat at a desk that faced the ocean. And he loved to look at the changing light and colors and compare the mood of the ocean to his mood. And it was that experience that inspired the words for this book. But Dr. Seuss knew that he wasn't the right person to draw the pictures. And so these words sat around for over 20 years. After he died, his wife found someone to paint the pictures, and those are the illustrations you'll see this morning. But as you listen, I encourage you to think about what colors accompany your different moods. What does a pink or purple or black or yellow day feel like for you? Does it match what it's like for Dr. Seuss? For me, many times it doesn't. My brown or blue or green days feel very different, and I would write different words and draw different pictures. So see what it's like for you. All right. Some days are yellow, some are blue. On different days, I'm different too. You'd be surprised how many ways I feel on different colored days. On bright red days, how good it feels to be a horse and kick my heels. On other days, I'm other things. On bright blue days, I flap my wings. Some days, of course, are sort of brown. Then I feel slow and low, low, down. Then comes a yellow day, and whee! I am a busy, buzzy bee. Gray day. Everything is gray. I watch, but nothing moves today. Then all of a sudden, I'm a circus seal. On bright orange days, that's how I feel. Green days, deep, deep in the sea, cool and quiet fish. That's me. On purple days, I'm sad. I groan. I drag my tail. I walk alone. But when my days are happy pink, it's great to jump and just not think. Then come my black days, mad and loud. I howl, I growl at every cloud. Then comes a mixed up day and wham! I don't know who or what I am. But it all turns out all right, you see. And I go back to being me. So, Heaven, what would you like the kids to do right now?
I would like the kids to come to childcare where we're going to draw pictures with different colors that show the moods that we're feeling. So if you have children that would like to come to childcare, that's what we will be working on.
Thank you so much. And now to switch moods completely. This is the time in our service where we pause from all the beautiful words and music to go inward, to listen for what is most true for each of us in this moment. As we quiet down, it often helps to start with our bodies. So I encourage you to find as comfortable a position as you can. You might wiggle your toes or do a shoulder roll or squirm a bit, whatever helps you to settle in. And then I invite you to take a few comfortable breaths, noticing the air going in and out, your chest and belly rising and falling. I invite you into a full minute of silence with these words by UU minister Karen Herring. It's called A Primer on Pausing. He learned it listening, watching his newborn sleeping. Her pause between breaths, causing his concern, testing his assumption that another breath would follow. Spiritual teachers call it the gap, a space between this and that, a second split and stretched, making room for options. This is how patterns break open, how choice happens. Slow down. Make room. Remember this rhythm carried within, an expectant pause between inhale and exhale. Fertile waiting, bearing an emergence wanted, needed, not yet revealed. Amen. I invite you now to join me in singing one of my favorite songs for in-between times. In times of uncertainty or anxiety, when I'm feeling fearful or shaky, I sing this song again and again like a mantra, and it helps me calm and ground. Please remain seated as we sing it together. I know this rose will open. Number 396 in the gray hymnal, and the words are right there.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. This rose will open. My fear. I know this rose will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. This rose will open.
In between times, transitions. Thank you, Reverend Sue, for bringing this topic into focus for us to contemplate and appreciate this time of in-between at UUCB and also in our personal lives. The long life of UUCB is marked by many transitions, my own long life as well. Transition is the rule, not the exception. Without change, there would be no growth. Everything is always changing, sometimes painful, sometimes embraced. During my 82 years of life, I have passed through many transitions: professional, geographic, personal, philosophical. One door closed, another opened. The in-between times were filled with emotions ranging from anxiety, deep sense of loss and pain, confusion, doubt about my future, and also by surprise, anticipation, adventure, deep joy, discovery, evolving identity, and sometimes by a new or renewed calling and life-changing decisions. I never knew where those in-between times would take me. In retrospect, that has been the gift of those transitions, those in-between times. The trick was learning how to use those times to recognize new doors and open them. I'm still learning. In the last several years, I've been emerging from a huge, heart-shattering transition. In 2012, my life partner, Cheryl, and I had a marvelous plan for the rest of our lives. Leisurely living in her modest house in the Berkeley Hills, summer retreats in a family cottage on Lake Ontario, retirement from rewarding careers, helping countless kids in the Berkeley schools. Advanced ovarian cancer was not part of our plan. Her illness and treatment journey was a traumatic time, an in-between time for both of us. She died in 2015. I went spinning through multiple life changes. I experienced a tsunami of emotions, grief for the loss of Cheryl, compounded by post-traumatic stress of the grueling treatments and disappointing outcomes that we lived and experienced together, anxiety over an uncertain future. But I was also grounded by the need to fulfill family responsibilities, settle her estate, help her sons manage their own grief, and continue part-time work to pay the bills. An earthquake had shattered the architecture of my life. William Bridges, in his book Transitions, invokes the notion of free fall as the state of being one might experience. That can be frightening, but also filled with curiosity about an opening of discovery, of the new. A different metaphor is truer for me. Being tossed in the middle of a lake, having to swim immediately, and needing to decide which shore to swim toward. After about a year, I swam back to UUCB, the church of my teens and my early 20s and my 50s. Then another accident of transition brought me to another strand of my grief work, a chalice circle, formed in the fall of 2016, composed of UUCB members who had lost spouses. Against all expectations, this group has refused to disband and continues to this day, losing members along the way, but also gaining new ones. Aided by this group of kindred spirits, and through this long in-between time, its gift to me has been a clarity and perhaps deeper sense that my core identity is the capacity to love and to be loved. Everything else is just the details.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Don, for those beautiful and wise words. I appreciate your reflection on a long lifetime of transitions. I'm so sorry to learn of the loss of your beloved Cheryl. Thank you for sharing this current, heart-shattering, extended in-between time with us today. And now I want to invite the rest of you to take a moment and think of a time or times in your life when you were in between one thing and another. It might be right now, it might be sometime in the past. It might be big or small. Maybe you were in between one school and another, one job and another, one boss and another, one home and another. In between being engaged and married, or separated and divorced. In between knowing a child was on the way and welcoming that child. In between retiring and the rest of your life. Maybe it was an ending with no idea of what new beginnings lay ahead, as Don just shared. Those are the hardest transitions, I think, having something end with no idea of what comes next. So take a moment, I'll pause, and just see what situations come up for you. And now choose one or two of these in-between times, whatever popped to the surface, and see if you can remember what the ending felt like. Was there a predominant emotion, a mix of emotions? And what about the in-between time? What did that feel like? And what about the new beginning? What did you do during that in-between time? How did you take care of yourself? How did you prepare for what was to come? Transitions are such a fundamental part of being human. We've each navigated many in-between times in our lives, and we each have different styles of doing so. Some of us take the time to really feel the emotions. Others plow right through their feelings, or shut them down, or ignore them at all costs. Some of us use the in-between time intentionally. Others distract ourselves and wait it out. And others are focused simply on keeping our heads above water. And of course, each transition is a bit different. Some are easier than others. There are transitions we choose and transitions that choose us. Sometimes there's more grief, more excitement, more relief. Whenever I'm in a major transition, I return to the book that Don mentioned earlier, Transitions, Making Sense of Life's Changes. It was written by William Bridges over 40 years ago, at a time when he was going through a painful transition of his own. Bridges became so fascinated by the inner landscape of change that he quit his job and became an expert on helping individuals and organizations navigate periods of change. There's a lot of wisdom in that book, and two insights in particular have guided me again and again. First, any ending and any beginning are marked by both losses and gains, griefs and gifts. Even the most joyful transitions contain challenges. The joy of a new baby may be accompanied by loss of freedom and independence, loss of sleep, loss of a social life. The excitement of a new job may be accompanied by stress, perhaps a wrenching move or loss of leisure time. And similarly, even the most devastating losses may contain gifts. The death of Don's beloved returned him to UUCB, where he has been a gift to us and received gifts from us. The shattering loss of a cherished job and the security, identity, and purpose that go with it may make space for new possibilities. We get into trouble, I think, when we think that something longed for should be all positive, or when we feel guilty because there are gifts within a traumatic loss. So lesson number one from Bridges' book: just about any transition carries mixed emotions. This is normal and natural. Lesson number two focuses on that period between an ending and a new beginning. Bridges calls it a neutral zone, which doesn't quite work for me because the emotions that come up are often anything but neutral. This in-between period is often a disorienting, uncomfortable place to be. Sometimes we feel lost, wondering who we are. We may lack a sense of purpose. Our daily routines may be in flux. And yet this uncomfortable in-between period is often necessary for something new to emerge. You might think of a chrysalis, how a caterpillar has to dissolve completely, before a butterfly can emerge. Or you might think of a seed that needs time to germinate. In between times, beg for gentleness, forgiveness, patience, and understanding. At any one time, many of us are in transitions of one sort or another, sometimes visible, sometimes invisible. And one of the gifts of a congregation is that we can support one another through these tender times in our lives. Right now, however, our congregation is in an in-between time. Our interim minister of the past 3 years, Reverend Michelle, said goodbye to us in June, and our new settled minister, Reverend Marcus, begins in August. Now, the job of an interim minister is to help congregations through the in-between time between one settled minister and the next, including helping us process whatever emotions came up when our previous ministers left. The thing is, Michelle was with us almost as long as our previous ministers. For some of you, she's the only minister you've known at UUCB. So I wanted to take this time to do a little mini interim work, to name some of the emotions that might be rising up, and to think together about how we might use this in-between time before Marcus joins us. Now, if you're a guest or a visitor, if you've never met Michelle, if this particular transition doesn't apply to you, I invite you to choose a different transition in your life and listen through those ears to see what might be applicable to you. And if you're new to UUCB, it may be helpful to keep in mind that this congregation is in an active time of transition. So for the rest of you, I invite you to check in with yourself about what emotions have been coming up for you around Michelle's leaving. For most of us, any minister's departure carries a mixture of feelings. There are things the minister did that we loved that we'll miss, and there are things the minister did that rubbed us the wrong way. There may be relief at their departure. There may be grief. Maybe Michelle was the one who blessed your baby, supported you after a loved one died, married you, helped you through a hard time. Maybe you loved her preaching. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you worked closely together, maybe your relationship was more distant. Maybe Michelle's departure is bringing up feelings about other departures in your life. So take a moment. How are you feeling about the ending of Michelle's ministry? For most of us, a minister's departure brings up a range of feelings. If you're experiencing emotions that need tending, I encourage you to give them some attention. You might want to talk about them, write about them, dance them, pray about them. Whatever will help you to process them, to make space in your heart for Marcus's arrival. And speaking of Marcus, I want to name that there may be mixed feelings there as well. While there's a wonderful groundswell of anticipation and excitement in this congregation right now, you may also be nervous. You may hate change. You may have doubts or concerns. Some of us knew Marcus as UUCB's student minister 10 years ago and wonder how he's changed. Some have never met him. Whatever many-colored feelings you're experiencing are okay and human and real. And I know some of you aren't feeling big emotions about this transition, and that's okay too. The point in all of this naming is to remind us that we're a diverse group of people, each having an individual experience of this collective transition. We're not all on the same page. This is, of course, true of any group of humans, family, workplace, a committee, a club, going through a transition. You know this. One difference is that in a congregation, we covenant about how we want to be together, including how we want to be together through transitions. During every worship service at UUCB, we say, "Love guides this church," and our mission is to create loving community. What does this love look like in practice? Well, part of loving one another is knowing that there are a lot of many-colored days floating around and being sensitive to that diversity. We UUs like to say we don't have to think alike to love alike. It's also true that we don't have to feel alike to love alike. And really, I want to say we don't have to feel alike to love one another, because what the heck does it mean to love alike anyway? We can love one another by honoring and respecting our differences. And one way we do this is by practicing that deep listening that many of you have learned in chalice circles, a listening that makes room for each person's experience without needing to change anything. As William Bridges taught, transitions are full of emotions. And one way we can move through this in-between time together is by making space for the range of feelings that are arising. We can also think about how we want to use this time. I know it's not a lot of time, just a few weeks, but there is a little time, and we might as well use it well. When I started thinking about this sermon, what came to mind, strangely enough, was Advent. I know my timing is 5 months off, but the thing about the Christian practice of Advent in those weeks leading up to Christmas is that it's not a passive twiddle your thumbs sort of waiting. It's a time of expectant, active waiting, of preparation for a new beginning. And so I ask, what do you need to do to prepare to welcome our new minister? Is there inner work, outer work, things you want to get in order? Ways in which you want to welcome Marcus and help him feel at home. If you're part of a group at UUCB, are there things your group could do to prepare for his arrival? How can you use this in-between time well? Transition is essential to being human. As you navigate the in-between times in your own life, and as we navigate this in-between time as a congregation, may we remember that transitions can be challenging, uncomfortable, and confusing, as well as exciting, joyful, and full of possibility. May we remember that we each respond to transitions differently. May we honor and respect those differences. May we be gentle with ourselves and each other through our many colored days and through all that is our life. And may we find our way together, companions on the journey. Blessed be, and amen.
Thank you, Reverend Sue. Now is the time in our service when we ask you to make an offering. Our opportunity to contribute to keeping our community dynamic and resilient. We are still conducting the offering without passing the plate. Instead, you can either give electronically by scanning the QR code on your badge, or you can put cash or a check in an envelope you can find in the back of the seat in front of you. Write your name on it and mark it offering plate or pledge. This is for accounting purposes. and then deposit it in the donation box in the atrium. Each week, half of our offering plate is shared with a nonprofit organization recommended by our Social Justice Council. We are grateful for your continued generosity with our good neighbors. Any offering of any value will be received with gratitude. The good neighbor for this month is the Bay Area Outreach Recreation Program known as BORP. At BORP, they work to improve the health, independence, and social integration of people with physical disabilities through sports, fitness, and recreation programs. At BORP, they believe that sports and recreation provide a path to greater achievement and believe all people should have access to them. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel, and all members of the Gamelan Ensemble. Please join me in dedicating our offering. We dedicate our offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation, to create loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage lives of integrity, joy, and service. So it's really been good being together today. Before we shift to our coffee hour, which will be in the patio today, I want to remind you to check out all the things that are available in our congregation by exploring our website, uucb.org. There you can find a link in News to the week ahead, our weekly email newsletter, which includes a list of activities, announcements, and contact information. As we prepare to leave the worship service, I have just 2 announcements. First, are you new to UUCB? Does UUCB feel like it could be your spiritual home? Or would you just like to know more about this church and the people who share your values? Today, at 12:30, you're invited to a luncheon gathering in the fireside room. You'll learn what this community is about and hear and share journeys of humanism and spirituality. Lonnie and Victoria will be at the welcome table after service today to answer your questions about the gathering and to guide you to the fireside room. Second, today at 2 p.m. here at UUCB, the final performance of A Midsummer's Night's Dream, the musical, will be presented by the Berkeley Shakespeare Company. UUC members and friends get discounted tickets at the door. Now please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our closing song, Love Will Guide Us, number 131 in the gray hymnal. The words will be on the screen.
May love guide us through all that is our life, through our mixed up, many-colored days, and especially through the inevitable in-between times that are part of being human. May we remember to be especially gentle with ourselves and each other during times of transition. May we use this precious in-between time well as we prepare for the next chapter in the life of this congregation, knowing that this rose will open and blossom and flourish. Go in peace and love, dear ones. Amen.